I'm James R. Bowen, late bugler of the First New York Dragoons, and, in my old age, their historian. If you are hearing my voice now, it is because the story of the Dragoons refuses to lie quiet in the pages of an old book. Among those stories, few delighted us more than an affair that came to be known as the Woodstock Races. Despite its playful title, it was a genuine cavalry fight and one of the most complete routs of Confederate horsemen in the Shenandoah Valley during 1864. To understand how it happened, you must consider the situation at the time. By early autumn, General Philip Sheridan had driven General Jubal Early's army up the valley and beaten him at Winchester and again at Fisher's Hill. With Early in retreat, Sheridan set about destroying the valley's resources, barns, mills, grain, and livestock, that fed Lee's army in Richmond. It was harsh work, but it was military necessity, and we did it thoroughly. As we moved back down the valley after this work of destruction, Confederate cavalry trailed us, growing bolder each day. They believed Sheridan was retreating under pressure and that they were driving him before them. In truth, Sheridan was retiring because his task was completed. Their misinterpretation gave them confidence and a desire to strike. At this moment, a Confederate officer named Thomas Rosser arrived from Richmond with a fresh brigade of cavalry. He came with great flourish, declared himself the savior of the valley, and was eager to punish what he called the barn-burning Yankees. One evening, as our brigade lay unsaddled near Tom's Brook, Rosser's entire force appeared suddenly on a rise of ground within hailing distance of our camp. Had they charged then, we would have been at a grave disadvantage, but instead they merely watched. We saddled quickly, and the moment passed without fighting. Their presence irritated Sheridan. He had no taste for being harassed by Confederate horsemen who believed they were chasing him out of the valley, so he resolved to give them a corrective. At daybreak the next morning, he ordered Merritt and Custer, our two spirited cavalry generals, to go out and either whip Rosser or be whipped themselves. Sheridan rode to a hill called Round Top to observe the field. The forces were roughly equal. Merritt advanced along the Valley Pike while Custer moved on a parallel back road several miles to the east. Between the pike, the back road, and the open space between them, nearly 4 miles of cavalry front stretched across the valley floor. Our brigade, under General Devon, with Colonel Alfred Gibbs in his accustomed place, held near the center. From that position one could look right or left and see the long blue line, guidons tossing and sabers catching the light. It was a splendid field for mounted combat, open, smooth, and free of fences. Skirmishers rode forward and opened fire with carbines. For a short time, the issue was in doubt, with charges and countercharges marking the front. Rosser reportedly told his staff, "Gentlemen, I intend to give those Yanks the worst whipping they ever got." If so, he was disappointed. The decisive order soon rang down the line. "Forward, draw sabers, charge." Our entire front went in with an irresistible momentum. In the center, the resistance was stubborn, but Merritt and Custer struck the Confederate flanks so sharply that the line buckled. Within minutes, the enemy broke in sudden, disastrous retreat. What followed was less a withdrawal than a stampede. For 26 miles up the Valley Pike, the Confederate cavalry fled in confusion, casting away equipment and abandoning guns and wagons in their haste. Our horsemen pressed them relentlessly, taking prisoners and laughing at the sheer spectacle of it. 11 pieces of artillery with caissons, several trains, and nearly 300 prisoners fell into our hands, with very small loss to our own command. Sheridan later wrote that it was one of the most complete victories he had witnessed. It was after this extraordinary chase that Colonel Gibbs, with his dry humor, christened the affair the Woodstock Races, a title that struck us as precisely right. It captured both the speed and the absurdity of armed men flying before their foes, as if the devil were behind them. You may ask why such an affair mattered beyond amusement. It mattered because after the Woodstock Races, no one doubted whose cavalry held mastery in the valley. The Confederate horse, once the pride of their army, had been beaten in open country by Merritt's and Custer's divisions, with the First New York Dragoons in the very heart of the fight. Sheridan's infantry and trains moved freely thereafter, and Rosser never regained the initiative. It mattered to us also as a point of pride. Early in the war, the Union cavalry had been poorly equipped and poorly regarded. By 1864, we had become hunters instead of hunted, and Woodstock proved it. I later set these things down in my regimental history of the First New York Dragoons, that the deeds of our little regiment might not be forgotten. If this brief account has stirred your curiosity, I invite you to read further and learn of our marches, our battles, our wounds, and our triumphs. The pages gathered here at alfredgibbs.com contain the letters, reports, and recollections that tell how we rode from New York to Appomattox. I was there as a young bugler, sounding the calls that sent the regiment into action. In my old age, I gathered its memories into a book. And now, in this new age, my voice is borrowed once more to tell you how Rosser's proud cavalry broke and ran, and how Colonel Gibbs named the affair the Woodstock Races. I am, as always, your obedient servant, Reverend James R. Bowen,